All right, let's get right into it. We are talking about a piece of music so intense, so totally groundbreaking that it actually started a riot. And no, I'm not kidding. This isn't your average history lesson. This is the story of how one guy decided to break all the rules and ended up changing music forever.
So let me ask you this. Can music actually start a fist fight? I mean, seriously, think about it. Can a bunch of sounds from an orchestra make people so angry they literally start throwing punches? It sounds completely wild, right? Like something from a movie. Well, stick with me, because I promise you, this actually happened.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1913. We're in Paris, the absolute center of the art world, and tonight is the premiere of the biggest show of the year. Everybody who's anybody is there, all dressed up in their fanciest clothes, expecting a pretty, elegant night at the ballet. They had absolutely no idea what was coming.
What they got instead was total, absolute chaos. The music starts, and almost immediately people start shouting. Then the shouting turns into arguments, and the arguments turn into actual fistfights right there in the aisles. It got so loud that the dancers on stage couldn't even hear the music they were supposed to be dancing to. It was so bad the police had to be called to shut down a literal riot at a ballet. So you've got to be wondering, who on earth could write music that makes people react like this?
All right, let's hit rewind and meet the guy behind all this chaos, a Russian composer named Igor Stravinsky. And here's the thing, he wasn't some nobody looking to cause trouble. He was already a big deal, a rising star, working with like the most famous, most cutting-edge arts group in the world at the time.
That group was called the Ballets Russes. Think of them less like a stuffy old ballet company and more like the hottest record label or game development studio you can imagine. They were led by this legendary producer, Sergei Diaghilev, and their whole mission was to be game changers. If you were working with them, you were basically on the bleeding edge of art, music, and dance.
And look, Stravinsky had already dropped two huge hits with them. First, there was The Firebird in 1910, which was this awesome, magical piece based on a Russian fairy tale. Total crowd pleaser. Then, in 1911, he comes out with Petrushka, a story about a puppet that comes to life, another absolute smash hit. So you see, Stravinsky was on a roll. The audience showing up for his third ballet thought they knew exactly what they were getting. Spoiler alert, they had no clue.
So what was it about this third piece, The Rite of Spring, that just made people completely lose their minds? Well, to put it simply, Stravinsky didn't just bend the rules. He took the entire rulebook and threw it out the window.
First of all, let's talk about the story. People were expecting another beautiful fairy tale. What they got was, well, an ancient pagan ritual where a young woman is chosen as a sacrifice and has to dance herself to death. Yeah, super dark, super intense, and a million miles away from what they were used to. But honestly, the story was just the beginning of the shock.
The real shock was a full-on assault on their ears and eyes. Okay, so look at what they expected versus what they got. They wanted pretty, flowing music. Stravinsky gave them harsh, clashing chords that sounded just wrong. They wanted nice, predictable rhythms. He hit them with these pounding, unpredictable beats that felt like they were constantly changing. It's like the soundtrack to a super intense video game boss battle. It's designed to make you feel anxious and on edge. And the dancing? Forget graceful ballet. The dancers were stomping, jumping, and making these weird, jerky, primitive moves. It was a complete overload.
So yeah, the premiere was a complete and utter disaster. You'd think that would be career-ending, right? A total failure. But this is where the story gets really amazing, because that failure turned into a legend.
See, once the dust settled and the shock of the riot wore off, people started to listen to the music on its own. And without all the chaos, they heard something incredible. They realized this wasn't just random noise. It was genius. Those harsh sounds and crazy rhythms were telling this story in this raw, powerful way that no one had ever tried before. It was a total masterpiece. The world just wasn't ready for it yet.
And the coolest thing about Stravinsky, he never stopped innovating. The Rite of Spring was from his Russian phase, but then, in the 1920s, he completely changed his style to something cleaner, called neoclassical. And then again, in the 50s, he switched it up to this super complex, brainy style called serialism. He was kind of like a YouTuber who gets famous for one type of video, and then, instead of just doing that forever, they completely reinvent their channel to try something new and push themselves. He was always evolving.
So why do we still talk about this one chaotic night in Paris over 100 years later? Because its impact was huge. Stravinsky basically redefined rhythm for modern music. His bold sounds inspired countless composers. And you can hear his influence in so many movie scores today, especially in action and horror films. He totally changed the game for dance, too.
But most importantly, he proved that classical music didn't have to be pretty or predictable. It could be powerful, shocking, and break every single tradition. Okay, so if there's one single thing you remember from all of this, make it this. A single piece of music was so revolutionary, it literally caused a riot and then changed the rules for everyone who came after. That's the power of art. It shows how one creator with one bold idea can completely shake everything up.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question. For you, think about the music you listen to, the games you play, the videos you watch. What are the unwritten rules that everybody seems to follow? And what's the next big thing? The next rite of spring that's just waiting for its own Stravinsky to come along and smash all those rules to pieces.